Welcome to this, I would say, a new episode of this series that now we are doing, that is Home Away from Home. And we think this year is especially important because with this series, we are going around the world to see how people living abroad, they're actually celebrating the traditional holiday important in their country and for their culture, but in another country and in another culture. And this year is especially important because maybe some of us living abroad will not have the opportunity to go back to their country of origin, or also because we know for everyone would be a different Christmas, as it was a different Diwali for the the Hindu community, and so on and so forth. So now Christmas is coming, and this is an important celebration for many countries and communities. And so I'm happy to have today with us Janice from Malta,
Hello.
because she has a really interesting story and she also works in school. So there is a lot I think she can share with us. So welcome, and I will ask first of all to introduce yourself.
Hello. Thank you, Viviana, for having me. I am Janice Darmanin. I'm 42 years old. I was born in Sydney, Australia. And at the age of 10, my parents decided that they wanted to come back to their homeland, Malta, because they are both Maltese. So they packed everything up and got me and my brother, my younger brother, and we came back to Malta. I'm an educator, um, and I have been working in schools for 22 years now. So that's basically it. I'm also a mother as well.
Good. So how was for you? So before actually your life in Australia and then coming back to Malta, uh, there is anything you have to, I think many things you have to adapt. What was there was any like cultural shock? How was for you at that young age? It is really complicated.
It was the biggest trauma of my life. And that is why I work with a lot of children who are non-nationals. I enjoy working with them a lot because I can totally understand what they've gone through. I remember when I came to Malta, and we came for good because we had come to Malta for holidays before, so I actually knew what Malta was all about. Um, but when I came to Malta, it was such a shock. Even I remember seeing even the difference of color, as in I told my father, it's too brown here. you know, or I liked seeing that greenery. So everywhere was old and brown, and I couldn't grasp even um, the language that well as well, because even though my mother spoke to us always in English, and my father spoke to us a lot in Maltese, so cognitively I did have Maltese in my brain, but it was still very difficult. Maltese is a very difficult language. um, and besides that, getting used to the community and the culture. When I came from Australia, I was considered as someone who was maybe not up to level as the other children. So I was sent to a class level which was less than what I should have been in. I should have been in year 5, and I was sent to year 4. Um, and so I was looked down at, maybe, a bit. There were very different times, and this was 1988. So it was quite, but it was very traumatic for me, even make friends. Um, it I always describe it as I feel like I died and I was born again. My life ended at the age of 9, and then I was reborn at the age of 9. It's very difficult to understand, maybe if you've gone through it, or if um, some people who have gone through it would understand what I'm talking about.
Exactly. No, especially I think at that young age, as you mentioned, because then you already live a part of your life in another country. So you have like memories, you have experiences, and then you go to another country and you have to restart again.
Yes.
And it is a traumatic experience. And
What was interesting, though, was that my brother was 6 turning 7, and it was not like that for him. Even we discuss it today as adults, and it made no difference in his life whatsoever. So you can understand how just a couple of years made the difference. In fact, I remember my parents telling me that it was now or never. They did not want me to start secondary school because it would have been obviously much, much worse.
Yes, exactly. And I think is now the work you are doing, definitely you can relate a lot for what the migrant children are going through, because it's not only moving, it's not only the language, there is much more going on at the deeper level.
Yes.
That, and this is why they need a special support. Also what you mentioned, maybe, and you were coming from a country and you learn English, and you also you learn Maltese, so you were you know both of the language that we're speaking in Malta, but still you were put in a different level, and this also have an impact. And even more nowadays with people coming and they don't know anything about like English or Maltese, but maybe in their country of origin they were really good at school and successful, and then they have to start again.
Exactly.
And how was your Maltese life in Australia? Then when you came back, when you came to Malta, not back to Malta, did you realize there was something that you were doing there? There was Maltese, and something that maybe you kept from Australia and you are doing now here.
My mother and father are very Maltese, and they are very traditional, and the culture is very dear to their heart. So even though for me, I mean, I was born in Australia, so even when people say like, isn't it strange that you have Christmas in summer? And I'm always like, no, there's nothing strange with that, because as a child, I remember nothing strange with it being hot or going to the beach or seeing a Santa in flip-flops, so that was not strange for me at all. But my parents, they were very traditional. So Christmas Eve, we would go to Mass, we would have the crib at home. Christmas Day for lunch, my mother, she would cook the traditional Maltese lunch with the broth and the lasagna and the roast meat. But then in the evening, we would go for a barbecue at a friend's place. They had a really big farm, and we used to go for a barbecue at their house. And obviously, we're outside. Christmas in Australia, we used to still sing songs, carols related to snow and to snowmen and everything. So we used to still sing all these songs. Some people used to change the words around for some songs. But there used to be people who go to the beach on Christmas Day. And what was nice, something which I used to love, was carols by candlelight. It used to be something which was done in the evening, obviously, so the weather was beautiful. We used to go out, and my mother used to go and take our rugs and with the candles and singing carols. So it was basically the same. The spirit of Christmas was still there, and in our family in a very, very traditional way. In fact, my mother, she will be seeing this later on, and I did talk to her before. I said, Ma, we're going to be talking about, and she said, do not forget to say that we brought the Maltese culture to Australia. So the culture is something which was very important and still is very important for them. So when I came to Malta, then it wasn't so strange, these things. I didn't miss the beach or anything like that. Another good factor was the weather in Malta is still relatively good. So imagine, if the shift was from Australia to Sweden, for example, it would have been much a bigger difference. But the weather in Malta helps. At least I remember most of Christmas days with beautiful sunny weather.
Yes. And maybe for the people that they don't know, because a lot of Maltese are and emigrated to Australia and also Canada. So there is also someone who said that there are more Maltese living outside Malta than in Malta. And how was there? You were also part of the Maltese community of Sydney. There was a community.
Yes. There was a very big community. In fact, as I'm telling you, my parents were very, very Maltese. So my father especially, he created and kept a community of Maltese. So even if we went on to the park, or we met up at home, there would always be Maltese people, Maltese Australians. So, and I'm still in contact with most of them through Facebook, through the children. Obviously now we're adults. We always had a community. There was always a community. We had a lot of Australian friends. For example, I didn't have any grandparents in Australia. My grandparents were in Malta, and we didn't have Messenger and Zoom and whatever to see them. So I never saw them unless we came on holiday, which was like every 2 years or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So our neighbors who lived in front of us, they were an old couple, an old Australian couple, and they became my grandparents. So, and I'm still in contact with their daughter as well. So it was like we had our community, our Maltese community, which was very strong. And we had also the Australian community, because then obviously through school, my father and his connections that he made in Australia, my mother who worked in a school as well there. So we had a mixture of both.
Yeah. I think that it is really important what you mentioned, and I just highlighted because again this year we are thinking a lot about this. How much you build your community when you are abroad. It's so important because it is your social support, and you can speak your language and meet people that have your same culture. But also it is important, and it's nice that you said I found my grandparents there, because sometimes the relationship that you build when you are abroad, they really become your family because you don't have all your family there. And you need maybe that kind of support, that kind of relationship, that kind of interaction. And so
Yes.
it's really good. And then nowadays it's easy to keep a relationship because we have all the Facebook, etc. But before that was really like being alone in a different country or alone and try to make and create another community and support.
Yes, it was very difficult. In fact, that's why even with parents who I have at school, some of them, they are very much alone. They come to Malta either for work or because they had to run away from a bad situation or a war zone, and they have no one. And it's not easy. Because when we came back, we had family. But starting anew and creating a community is not always easy. And sometimes all they need is just to talk.
Yes.
Create a conversation and know that there's somebody out there who, if they need help, will help.
Yeah, I know you're also doing a research on parents at school, and we also discussed this, that school can really be a place of integration also for parents, if they also they feel it, that it's a safe space where they can ask, they advance some requests, so they can just reach someone for help or just share.
Yes, that's very important. I still think that we have a lot of work to do in that sector in Malta, especially with regards to schools, because I still think that we have the mentality that like organizing a multicultural day is enough. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's not good. I think it's a great starting point. But more has to be done than that. And I think that we have to learn to give more time for relationships, for discussions, for having the time to talk. In fact, as you're saying, as part of my research, these focus groups that I'm doing with parents, even though it's online, but they have said so many good comments, both the Maltese and the non-nationals, of how it's been good. I mean, even I have learned things about parents which I didn't know before. And that level of understanding helps create this community.
Yes. No, I think that's totally true. And the idea also having this conversation, home away from home, like talk or blog post, is because community is important, but then it's also important to understand the story of the people and the experience of the people.
Yes.
So, and it's also, again, is a sharing that we are going through a lot this year, and celebration will be difficult for all of us. We will miss maybe our family or our community, but there are a lot of us who are going through this, but there are also a lot of resources out there if you're able to ask for help. And I think the school and people like you are great resources for all the foreigners living in Malta.
Yes, it's very true.
So thank you for being with us. I don't know if there is anything else your mother told you to share with us about your Christmas in Australia or about the
She'll probably call me after and say, you didn't say this or you didn't say that.
We can add them in the comment.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yes.
Thank you so much, so, for being with us.
Thank you very much, and well done. And thank you, because even through these videos, I'm also learning a lot from others around the world. It's a very good opportunity. Thank you.
Again, Merry Christmas and
Thank you.